you a gentleman who needs no introduction. He doesn't need a 10-minute mosh introduction. He's a Hall of Famer. He knows it. He's got a plaque. He's had a drink with me before, as well as past members of the Mayhem crew. He is the play-by-play voice for Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. Truly a very esteemed journalist, and most importantly, they don't call him the professor for nothing. Mike Tenay, a good friend, nonetheless, back aboard the airwaves of your home of wrestling. Mike, it has been quite some time, almost a year and a half. How have things been, my friend? Happy holidays to you and your family.
Well, thank you very much, Big Mosh. Great to be back on the broadcast with you. And, if there's just one thing that's missing from those events in Orlando, Florida, wherever it is that TNA travels around this country, it's seeing you and the crew in attendance. We had a great streak running when you guys used to come down to Nashville on a regular basis. I know that you've been to Orlando a couple of times, but you know the deal. You haven't come to Orlando, so I don't come on the program.
I haven't been. I think the last time that you were on was maybe May of last year, and that was probably the last time that I was down in Orlando.
See?
Now, I can't say this. You've been on the program 6-7 times. I've actually lost track, but, I can say this without a shadow of a doubt because I know that there is not only a lot of new listeners listening in, but a lot of the chapters of the TNA U, the brand new program that TNA is working with college campuses nationwide that are actually, just starting to follow TNA or have been following TNA for a long period of time. TNA is the most professional organization, wrestling or non-wrestling related, that we've ever worked with in 5+ years. Whether it be, go ahead, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think what separates us from a lot of the other organizations is that we haven't lost sight of the people that were there with us early on. As someone who's been involved with this for an awful long time, I know it's one thing for a wrestling company to latch on to a radio show when they need that radio show. It's another thing once that organization starts to grow to remember its roots and remember the people that were there with them in those tough periods, in those growth periods. And I think TNA is to be complimented as far as that goes. That's for sure.
No, I will agree without a shadow of a doubt. Now, Blade, one of the things, if you remember our good former co-host Chaz and Pharaoh, even resident Monday Night Mayhem girl Beth Hardy, who I hear is on her way back to, or actually going to Connecticut, I should say, you have yet had the opportunities. You're the only Monday Night Mayhem crew member. You've been doing this show with me for how long? You have not met Mike Tenay.
35 years.
No, it hasn't been that long yet, Blade. You have not met the good professor, but this is...
this is part of the deal, then. We're gonna make them come to Buffalo, Rochester, and we were just in Syracuse.
That is correct. And I will say this, since there are other rumors going around that the Against All Odds pay-per-view could be in South Carolina, I know that it's TNA's mission, and let's start off talking about this. Of course,
sure.
We're approaching the end of 2007. TNA is making every attempt to branch out and bring as many pay-per-views to other areas outside of the Orlando, Florida area in 2008. What is the likelihood, do you think, of TNA making a big splash, let's say, in a market like Cleveland, Pittsburgh, heck, even Buffalo, or maybe even someplace like Toronto in Canada? I know that towards the end part of December, TNA is going to be making their debut with some house shows in Canada.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really proved in 2007 was that the audience is so interested in seeing the live TNA events, especially the pay-per-views. The success that we had late in 06 with the show in Detroit, followed up this year with the shows in St. Louis, back to our home base in Nashville, the show that we did in Atlanta, Bound for Glory in October. To me, as I look back over the year, it's probably my favorite show of 2007. I think it was really just a terrific effort by everybody involved with the company, and it's so fun really to get out into a community and spend an entire weekend in that city. A city like Atlanta, where I used to live with when I was working for WCW, to be able to go back in and to do a fan fest on a Saturday and bring 500, 600 people into a room where they can get up close and personal with all the stars of TNA, get all the autographs, pictures, and things that they want to get from the TNA stars, and then to come back and just do a kick-ass show like we did with Bound for Glory. It's such a great feeling in terms of accomplishment, in terms of strides that you're making as a company. I think TNA, there's a lot of people on the internet, a lot of the critics that say maybe that TNA needs to advance faster than we've been advancing, but I think that the organization, the front office, is to be commended. Because this first 5 years, let's face it, the first 4 plus, it's almost like survival mode. Odds were totally against TNA from the beginning. Then to be able to not only survive, but now to be able to take it to that next level, to get that 2-hour show from Spike TV, and finally, like you guys brought up, to be able to take these pay-per-views on the road. It really is great, and one would certainly think. I mean, I've heard the rumors about Greenville, South Carolina coming up. I believe that's February. Certainly heard about that, as well as I don't know the exact number of the 12 pay-per-views that we will be on the road, but one would presume that, you know, probably at least half of those or more are going to be on the road and out of Orlando, Florida. And I think almost in keeping with that same theme of taking the steps and really walking before we run, one would guess that the majority of those events on the road are going to be in the Eastern time zone in terms of travel for the company to get back to Orlando to do TVs and the like. And I think it's, you know, without naming any cities, I think it's pretty obvious that once we get to 2008 rolling, we'll be going into a lot more markets. And one would think initially a lot of them would be on the East Coast, either in the southeast part of the United States or, you know, up in the Northeast, which I think would be great.
Mike, obviously sort of encompassing two gentlemen who are really at a sort of a crossroads in their career. One who really has a rejuvenation of their career in Booker T. A lot of people shocked to see him jumping from World Wrestling Entertainment to Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. We see one person entering in TNA. We could see another person quite possibly leaving TNA. And I know this is a little early to maybe sort of jump the gun on this, but you know, it seems that more or less from what has been reported, the contract is on the table. If Steve Borden wants to sign it, put his name on the dotted line, he can be a part of TNA for another year. But I mean, I can't be, you know, a helpless critic, so to speak, and see, you know, Ric Flair has this little bit of a career, you know, rejuvenation of sorts, maybe a 1-year left status in World Wrestling Entertainment. One would think Sting would want to have a final match with Ric Flair in his career before both of them retire. So, again, people are wondering, does Sting retire? Does he go to TNA? Does he continue on with TNA, which he's done great things for you guys? Or does he jump to WWE? Starting with Booker T, what do you see a part of Booker T with Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, and do you think at this point in his career that it's a good fit for TNA with Booker T? And point blank, what do you see for Sting going into 2008?
I think perfect fit as far as TNA and Booker T goes on so many fronts. It's just been great to see him again, to see his wife again after, you know, working for so many years with them, and the respect that I have for the accomplishments of both of those individuals. It's, you know, right up at the top of anybody that I've ever worked with in professional wrestling. For him to come back now at this point in his career and to feel rejuvenated, the word I think that you were talking about there, I think it's a natural with TNA. Everything is there for him in TNA to accomplish. I don't think that in terms of maybe all the political situations that he's had to deal with in the past, I think those probably will, you know, there's always going to be politics in professional wrestling. It just goes hand in hand with it. But I think the situation that he's coming into is going to be just a real positive for him, tremendous positive for the organization. Just to see, again, the response that we have from that crowd when TNA makes one of these major acquisitions, and I think back to the first time that we saw Christian Cage come into the Impact Zone, the first time we saw Kurt Angle, the first time we saw Sting when he made his return to TNA. Just such a great response, and I think Booker T's was probably equal, right up there in terms of getting that goosebump factor and the hair on the back of your arm standing straight up when he comes out for that initial response from the crowd, and he's going to be a great addition to TNA. Just gives us another one of those big guns, you know, at the top of that main event player, that guy who's somebody you can rely on for that main event match to not let you down and really deliver on a pay-per-view. As far as Sting goes, I'm not really sure. I think that certainly the door is open for Sting to return to TNA. You mentioned that you thought that Sting maybe would have it in the back of his mind that he would have to go to WWE for another match against Ric Flair. I'm not going to tell you that I really, you know, am inside Sting's head and know him that well, but I almost feel like Sting is one of those guys who lives for the moment. I think Sting lives for the future. I don't know that Sting is one of the wrestlers, and there certainly have been many in the past that sit there and look at their individual legacy and list of things that, you know, they've been able to do in professional wrestling and say to himself, man, there's that one more thing that I need to do. I need to have that one more match with Ric Flair. I don't know that Sting is is really that's his makeup. So I don't know that that's going to be, you know, part of the consideration when it comes down to that decision-making process or not. But I know that, you know, TNA would certainly welcome his return.